Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for showing up. This is a very competitive spot. You have Daniel talking about Camellia and Brian talking about FreeSwitch. So I'm honored that you're here. And I want to thank DGIM for hosting the 14th Astricon. And let's get going. We're going to talk about deploying Asterisk on originally the plan was to talk about multiple clouds and show it to you, but we'll get to the problem with that very soon in the presentation. Basically, this is the vision, to have Asterisk everywhere and to do it easily and all automated. And before we're starting, I'll talk about myself for a couple of seconds. Sorry. Okay. My name is Or. I work as a research engineer at Fodder. It's a company that provides e-commerce fraud prevention in real time. We're talking about specifically online transactions fraud prevention, but we also make sure that your phone orders stay safe. Asterisk is my personal, I could call it a hobby, for the past 9 years. I've been working, before I started working at Fodder, I worked for Greenfield Tech. They're sponsoring the Dangerous Demos in this conference. And I developed VoIP mobile SDK there. And this is my third Astricon, and the third time I'm speaking, and I'm glad to be back. And in general, security is pretty much what I like to do. This is also a big part of my day-to-day work at Fodder. And we have security advantages by deploying Asterisk automatically, and we'll get there very soon. In general, Fodder provides decisions. In general, all transactions that are done with credit cards online are not insured for the merchant. So if you have a website and you're selling, let's say, computers, it's your responsibility to verify that the person who's using the credit card is the actual owner of the card. If you're not doing that and the real card owner says, hey, I didn't do that transaction, that I didn't buy any computer, then you're staying both without the money and without the computer that you've already shipped. So Fodder's job is to protect the merchants from that perspective. So you could send the computers with confidence and still get your money. And the whole idea is to do it without adding any more friction or limitations to the users that trying to buy computers from you. And obviously, it's not just computers, but everything you can sell online, basically. A bit about the agenda for this presentation. We're going to talk about which is the right audience. You're all here, so you're the right audience. Don't worry about that. But this is some technical and some more, intro to cloud and automatic deployments. So we'll get there. And we're going to talk about what is libcloud, what is it good for, how does it help you, and then we're going to see some kind of some deployments of Asterisk in all sorts of environments. So yeah, this talk is for professionals and those who aim to become one. So everyone, basically. And I'm going to start with a few questions that I'd like to know. How many of you use Asterisk in their day-to-day work? If you could please raise your hands. Okay, so that's a lot. And how many of you use any kind of automatic deployment system like AWS CloudFormation or basically anything that lets you create new machines without having to manually install it? If you could please raise your hands. Okay, so that's an impressive number, but still less than the people who work with Asterisk every day. And how many of you have an active monitoring system in place that monitors all the Asterisk and raise alerts if something goes wrong? If you could please raise your hands. So that's even a smaller number of people. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, but I'm suggesting a different perspective to how deployments should work. So basically, cloud is a very good thing. It has many advantages. It allows you to extend your business and your servers to many regions in the world. You can get more machines as much as you like. So if you are, now we're getting closer to the holidays in the US, so you're going to handle a lot more phone calls. When you're working with a big cloud provider, you can get as many machines as you need. You can book them ahead of time. You can just reserve yourself some instances. And you can also get instances on demand. And that's a great advantage that you can't do when you're working with the physical infrastructure, because you'll have to buy more servers ahead of time. And once you bought physical servers, you're stuck with them. You can just return them back to the provider when you're done. So we're going to talk about how quickly can you scale. That's one of the great advantages that cloud offers to users. I think the first rule of thumb is to just stop deploying manually. Once you make the decision that everything has to be automatic, and you won't allow yourself to go ahead and install new machines manually, you should just channel the energy you're investing in installing new machine manually, in creating a script that will do that for you for the next time. And when you're deploying manually, you have so many variables that you need to take into consideration. You can lose track on machines. You could deploy a machine for a certain customer with a specific version, which was the latest version of Asterisk at the time. But as long as you advance, you don't have any kind of track on it. Nothing reminds you that you need to upgrade, and nothing tells you that, oh, this guy is on a very old version. And when you're doing it automatically, then every time you make an adjustment to your deployment script, you know, oh, hey, I just upgraded the Asterisk version. Let's deploy again for everyone, and everyone will get the latest features. And in general, copying a machine, let's say you've deployed, you've installed a great distribution of Asterisk, everything is configured perfectly, and it's working, and nobody has one-way audio issues or NAT issues. If you want to copy that machine and configure it for a new customer, an additional customer, it's not that simple. You have to copy the machine, then you have to change the IP addresses manually, and you get into a lot of manual work that you'll do every time you want to create a new machine. So automating the whole workflow gives you lots of benefits. It reduces the manual work you have to do, and it gives you better control. This talk is focused about using libcloud. It's Apache libcloud. This is a project that Apache helps to maintain. It's open source library. It's, I think the support of the community is really good, and everyone provides their feedback and pull requests, and it's just a lovely thing to see. What they promise you is one interface to rule them all. libcloud provides I think it's the lowest common ground for all cloud providers, but it's also strong enough and good enough to give you everything you need. So it gives you the ability to create machines. It gives you the ability to create elastic storage of any kind, SSD volumes, cold storage volumes, and it lets you control CDN and object storage. It lets you manage your DNS records, and one of the most important things, it also lets you control over the network in your cloud deployments. Originally, it was developed by CloudKick. It's a company that was acquired by Rackspace in 2011, and just after the acquirement, this project joined the Apache incubator. And you probably think to yourself, yeah, cool, that's nice, but I've heard this premise before. I know there are things like Terraform, there is CloudFormation, you have Kubernetes, you have Chef, Puppet. tons of names and tons of tools. Everything is open source, everything's available online. Why should they use libcloud? What's so special about it? So, to me, I think this is something I didn't mention. libcloud is currently written in Python, and it supports only Python. But it is, I think it's created so well, and it lets you do so many great things as for deploying and monitoring your deployments and controlling your system in very, very little amount of code lines. So one of the slides I wrote, become a deployment master in 30 lines of Python. And the script I'm going to show you today that deploys Asterisk to the cloud is 30 lines of Python, nothing more. And cloud providers will help you migrate. Okay, let's say that you've decided that you want to do that step and you want to take your system and move from physical servers to virtual servers, or you want to move from working with a single region provider to, let's say, AWS or Google Cloud Engine, Google Cloud Platform. I'm not getting to all the advantages that working with a big and well-maintained cloud has, but the thing is that once you've decided you want to do that, all cloud providers will help you. AWS will help you, and they'll tell you, they'll invest the time and the means and the hours of engineers to help you decide how your infrastructure should look in the cloud and what to do, and if you're having a hard time creating the deployment scripts, they'll try to help you. Google take it even to the next step, and they're sending their engineers to your location. And that's great, but what they're doing is they're just locking you to work with their infrastructure. Excuse me for a second. AWS's support team will help you create CloudFormation scripts. CloudFormation is the syntax, the boilerplate for defining your infrastructure and continuously deploying it in Amazon's cloud. But it's good only for Amazon. Kubernetes can be deployed on other clouds, but still it's a very Google-based or Google-oriented deployment system. And other tools like Chef and Puppet and tons of others are either too low level or too high level to help you and give you the flexibility that if you'll decide to move to a different cloud provider at any point of the time, you will be able to do that. Okay? CloudFormation scripts are no good for Google Cloud. So libcloud does provide you, it's pretty much the same as Terraform. Terraform provides really good abstraction for deployments and defining your infrastructure, but the learning curve to get into working with Terraform and having an actual deployment that works is pretty big. It's definitely not 30 lines of Python or less. This is the way that I find automating your workflow is difficulty. I think that the very early stages of automation, okay, so creating new machines, which is the thing that you must do to have more Asterisk instances, this takes a lot of time when it's not automated. You have to install the OS distribution, you have to compile sources, you have to put everything in the right place, and that takes a lot of your time, and it takes some really considerable effort. And automating that part is fairly simple, because all you have to do is have an install script. So I think that the area, I think the slide is pretty small, but having 0% automation it's obviously the least complicated, because you don't have to write your own automation scripts. But having 50% of your deployment automated takes much less effort than having 100% or 99% of your work automated. And I think the fine balance is between having 80 to 90% of your work automated. So this presentation is going to talk about that area, getting you from having almost no or very little automation in the way you work today to automate at least 85 to 90% of your day-to-day work, which is installing machines, installing Asterisk on those machines, and making sure everything is working. And I think that to get to that, you have a very, very short learning curve. So before we get into actually seeing the code and filling it with our own hands, I want to tell you what libcloud does and doesn't. So you have the list in front of you. It does give you a very simple way to create new machines and delete new machines and discover your existing machines. You can do that. Each one of these things can be done with a single Python line. It's create node, delete node, list nodes. That's about it. It also lets you do all of these actions on your DNS records and your storage records, and again, very importantly, your network. So if you're having a VPC in Amazon, Virtual Private Cloud, you can create new network segments and you can assign IP addresses to your machines, which is very important to do automatically. The thing that it doesn't, it's definitely not providing you the low-level integration with your own cloud provider. So if you're using like very special features of AWS, let's say you're using AWS's CDN, CloudFront, and you're using their behavior to define how you should act with certain HTTP requests. Should you forward the headers or not? You won't have that control with libcloud. It's not there yet. It's not perfect. It's very far from perfect, but it's working, just not for these following things. So as long as you adjust your expectations, you should be very happy with what it does offer. And we're going to move over to the actual deployment. We're going to deploy Asterisk. In this demo, we're going to deploy it to Google Compute Engine, which is the service of virtual machines in Google Cloud Platform. And all the script does is create a new instance, install Asterisk on it, and then clean up the mess that it did while installing. So I'm going to step outside from presentation mode. And we're going to see it hands-on. OK. So this is the deployment script for Asterisk, and I'm going to go over it really briefly. I'm starting by importing libcloud, and I'm defining the deployment name. That will be astricon as a prefix for the new machine I'm starting, and the current timestamp to know when did I start the deployment. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm asking for libcloud to provide me a driver. And a driver in this use case is libcloud's abstraction to the cloud provider you chose. So you have here Google Compute Engine as provider, but it could also be AWS, okay, Amazon. Where is AWS? So you have Azure and CloudFrames. You have over 50 cloud providers that are supported by libcloud, which is pretty impressive. EC2, this is the elastic computing. This is AWS's VM virtual machine service. So we are working with Google Compute Engine, and I'm creating, after I got the correct driver, I'm initiating it with my service account and the secret key file. These two are provided to you from Google's developer console when you create a new account. And the data center here is the default data center to deploy the machine to. So I won't have to specify it when I'm deploying a new node. And after you do that, you can basically list all the available images that Google has. So you can have CentOS, you can have Ubuntu, you can have Windows Server, etc. All of the default available images can be found with list images. You can also create your own image and deploy from your own image, which is very important. Same goes for sizes. And what I'm doing here is I'm deploying Asterisk on an image that I chose from the beginning, which is CentOS version 6. And so, as you can see, these are 40 lines of code. And if you remove all the prints and all the unnecessary new lines, you're staying with about 30 lines of code. All I have to do is deploy node. This is the single method that I need to call in libcloud in order to deploy a new machine. And its name is going to be deployment name, which, as we said, will be * and the timestamp. And I'm providing the size, the image, and the path for an install script on my computer. And this script is going to run on the newly created machine. So what's going to happen now is that we're going to run the script. So everything I'm showing is available in my GitHub profile under Asterisk 2017 demos. You're going to have the link available when I'm done, and you can also get my details from here with a link to my GitHub profile. So the script that you see is we have the deploy asterisk GCE, and we're going to run it with Python. Deploy asterisk GCE. So it's starting the deployment. And that's going to take about 5 to 10 seconds to actually get the machine running. That's it. It created a new machine. This is the name of the machine. And it's available to me already in the Google Developer Console. So please ignore the other machines. We're going to look for this machine. And as you can see, it's already available. What happened is that they simply started the machine. And now my install script is running on the background, but it's already accessible. So I can just go ahead and SSH to the machine. Regarding SSH keys, libcloud allows you to provide them a public SSH key. So it will install it on the machine itself when it's creating it. But you can also work with predefined SSH keys on cloud providers that support it. And as you can see, I'm already in the machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that the deployment script is running. So I'm going to do tail on the asterisk deploy. And as you can see, things are running in the background. We'll get back to that deployment very soon. Of course, since this is a conference and the deployment takes a bit more than 5 minutes, I also have machines that I've deployed with the script about an hour ago. So we'll also see those very soon. So basically what happened is that I've deployed the machine and I started running this deploy script. Okay, and this deploy script is installing what it needs from the package manager and then downloading a different install script that is meant to deploy asterisk and runs it. That's about it. Back to our presentation. Where did it go? This is my cat, by the way. Yep. I have to exit the presenter mode. Excuse me for that. It always happens. Okay. So back to our presentation. We are here. So that was deploying asterisk. We can do another thing, which is deploying Dockerized asterisk. Okay, Dockerized asterisk. How many of you heard about Docker, the container engine? Okay, so that's a decent number. Docker is basically a container engine that allows you to define a machine in a single file or multiple files. And what it does is it creates a Linux container and runs a type of install script, but it promises you to have the exact same result on every platform that Docker is supported. So it's pretty much like Java. You have Docker for Windows, Docker for Mac OS, and you have clouds that support running Docker images. It's great because it's a very simple way for running a virtual machine on a virtual machine. And it has more features such as enhanced security that containers provide you, but also the ability to define other Docker images as dependencies. So let's say I'm writing a new application and I need an Apache server and I need a Redis server. I can just say I need an Apache image and I need a Redis image, and it will get them for me, either from a central container registrar or from my own container registrar. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over the other script that does this exact same thing. It deploys to Google Compute Engine a Dockerized Asterisk, and we'll move on from there. So this is our deploy Dockerized Asterisk. Is the font big enough, or do you want me to enlarge it a bit? Okay. So I'll go to presentation mode. So what we have here is a bit more advanced deployment script. It gives you things that the other script didn't give you, which are sending a Slack message about the newly deployed machine and deploying the machine by region in a single function. So the script itself is here. Again, we have the deployment name, asterisk Docker, and the current timestamp. We have a region in which we want to deploy the machine. And in this case, we'll have US Central 1A. And then what I do is I run over the list of regions, and I'm deploying the machine itself. So I get the Google Cloud engine, Google Compute Engine, I'm sorry, by region. And then I'm deploying the new node, which is, again, just getting the size and the image and deploying it with the deployment script. Here we're using the Dockerized Asterisk, which, again, downloads Docker, install it, and then it clones all the Docker file itself from GitHub, and we'll go over the Docker file as well, because that's, actually I have to open this one. So let's exit presentation and go over to the Docker. So this is the Docker file, and it's very resembling the the simple bash install script, but it has a different syntax. Excuse the IntelliJ for keeping you waiting. So what the first line does, it gets you the latest CentOS 7 image from the Docker repository, and then it runs the commands that you say, which install development tools, and then you're downloading latest asterisk, compiling it, installing it, adding sounds, and giving the right permissions to the files. This is exactly the same as the asterisk install script. It's just in a Docker format. And you can find Docker files for almost everything online. So after, excuse me again for the presentation mode. OK. So we're running the deploy node with the Docker install script, and that's about it. And we're going to run this deployment script as well. And you'll see that Python deploy Dockerized asterisk GCE. And what we have here is, again, a deployment starts. And once the deployment started, I'm going to get a Slack notification that a new machine is up and running. OK, so here, my machine is up and running. I've also added the name of the region in which it's deployed. okay? And if I go over to my Slack, then you'll see that I got a message that a new node was deployed, the name of it and the public IP address. This is a great way to monitor your new deployments. If your script has any kind of Slack notification or reporting it to a monitoring system, then you will always have a track about which machines started deploying and which didn't. And if we'll go to the, okay, sorry. Where did it go? Yep. So here the compute engine. I'll give a quick refresh, and you can see that the deployment we've just started at 3:31 is also running. Okay, so these deployments take time. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect to the machines that I've deployed before. First, we'll start with the Asterisk machine, and as you can see, I have a machine from 3, and I have a machine from 9. I think the machine from 9 is when my clock wasn't adjusted. So that's one downside of it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that Asterisk is really there and running. Then we'll do the same with Docker, and we'll go really briefly about how to handle these deployments. Okay, so we need to start Asterisk and then go. And as you can see, core show version, we have an Asterisk running on a machine. I did that with the 30-line script that you saw, and I think it's pretty nice. We have the same for Docker, and this one is available. As you can see, I deployed this one on Asia. I had an issue accessing the Asterisk community project mirror in the morning, so I just deployed it from a different region, and it got the different regions mirror, and everything went okay. So this one's live too. Okay, let's go to home, Docker Asterisk, and second of them of phone calls. Right, so I have here a script that just runs the Docker container with everything mapped, and then I can. This is Docker syntax for who's not familiar with it. You can go over it. It's pretty simple. And what I'm doing now is I'm executing a command on the Docker container itself. This is the container, and I'm going to exec bash to get a shell. So now what I have here is the Docker machine, and I can just go Asterisk. And again, I have an Asterisk machine inside the Docker container on Google Compute Engine. All of this done with a deployment script. I didn't have to install anything on my own. And I think that saves 50% of the manual work, more than 50% of the manual work that I'll normally do. Now, yeah, so as I said, it also lets you monitor deployments, and reporting to Slack about the newest deployments is a great way to keep track. I think the future of the deployment should be that once your machine is deployed, you let it run for a bit, and after 5 minutes, send a report about how the new machine looks. So this is a screenshot from Forter's Slack channel, our production channel, actually. And it shows you what kind of a report we get when we are deploying a new environment that should decide if the transaction is fraudulent or not. So we are starting a new environment, we let it run, and provide decisions for transactions. And after, in this case, the time that it ran was 135 minutes. We have a report on how many transactions were processed and what was the difference. And at the end, we have an AI bot that provides the decision if this environment is good enough. So what you could do is you could basically start a new Asterisk deployment, let clients connect to it, and after 5 minutes send a report on how many calls went through, what's the average load, what's going on with the available disk, and more important, since you can control block storage and you can control network volumes from cloud, you can, let's say, create a new machine for a customer, map a network volume that has all the recordings of that client, and when you're deploying a new machine for him, you're just linking the old records network volume. So it lets you keep your deployments always on the latest version while having the rest of the things unchanged and don't have to configure it manually. The cherry on the top is that you can, with this simple deployment script, you can have your own Asterisk deployed on multiple regions. All you have to do is just uncomment the regions to deploy, and instead of deploying it on a single one, deploying it on multiple ones. So I could basically just go and instead of deploying it on US Central, I can deploy it on both US Central, both Central B and Asia. And I'm going to run it just to show you that it works. And I'm getting new machines. And we're about done. So Python deploy Dockerized Asterisk. So it's running on the first region. And as you can see, it's very quick. You're getting the machines in no time. The whole deployment should take 5 or 10 more seconds. OK, this is US East 1B. And you're going to get Southeast Asia as well. There it is. And again, you're getting Slack notifications on all of these deployments, which is really nice. And if you'll go to the Compute Engine console and just hit refresh, you see that the machines are deploying and each machine is in its own region. So you just became from a person who installs machines manually to a person who can have multiple region deployments. And I think that's really cool that libcloud lets you do that with so little amount of code. And yeah, everybody gets an Asterisk. You can do that too, seriously. Just decide that everything has to be done automatically, and I think the rest will follow. It's really up to you. So thank you for the time, and I think, do we have time for Q&A?
Yeah, unfortunately no time for Q&A, but I'm going to volunteer you to hang out in the hallway so people can ask questions after. I have to set up so I can start it.
OK, wonderful.
So
sorry for keeping the next speaker waiting, and thank you.
That was great info. Thank you very much. And again, any feedback for presenters and everything, that would be awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, Or.